Someone did a little, we should pull it up at some point, but somebody did a kind of grid of like Joe Rogan with Chamath, Joe Rogan with Thiel, Joe Rogan with Musk, like all these billionaires. And it's like, huh?
Mehdi Hasan brought on comedian Sean Marco to talk about people like Joe Rogan and Bill Maher. You know the whole anti-woke comedy thing, how they keep talking about MAGA types and billionaires? Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're also going to run through a few clips of Mehdi's show, and I got a few things to mention on it, so let's dive in and break it down together.
As a comedian, do you feel you can speak honestly?
I think that's what comedians should be doing. I think the idea of having presidents on your podcast and political figures running for office, if you want to play that game, that's one thing. If you want to go there and be a journalist, and some of it's like comedians kind of flirting with journalism at the same time that journalists were flirting with comedians, and I say that ironically, we are on a show like that. But then you have to be held to different accounts. If I have a politician on my show, I need to be held to a journalistic standard the same way that if you headlined the DC Improv, I would say, where are all the fucking punchlines? Like if we are going to wait, I'm sure you would. But if we're going to wait in each other's territory, we need to also be held to the same.
We don't have politicians on the show, right? I do another show in another part of this studio where I grill politicians and I wear a suit and tie.
Sure.
But on this show, we're having a chat about comedy. But
I was going to say no tie. I was very disappointed.
I know. People do get disappointed.
That's the problem with this cozying up to these, and suddenly they're being invited to things, and I go, well, then you're not a fucking comedian anymore. You are a propagandist, and you are coming up with these people going to the inauguration. Comedians should be in the back.
Joe Rogan was at the inauguration.
Joe Rogan, Theo Von.
But these are proudly independent media, independent broadcasters. Once you turn up at the inauguration of a president, whether Democratic or Republican, how independent are you?
We all know, certainly, and you have to contend with this more than I do, but when you criticize someone publicly, it's harder if you know them. It's harder if you get dinner with them. It's harder if you text them sometimes. And I do not think comedians have the power, the strength to be cozying up, go to the events, drink the wine, hang out, party, go on the jet, and then be honest about their critiques.
You've been very critical of what you call the anti-woke comedy movement. Who are they?
Joe Rogan is certainly the face of it. But I think a shitload of comedian podcasts have been cozying up. Any comedian who has had
and they also pretend to be apolitical, but they're basically platforming the right.
Absolutely. And maybe they went into it. Some comedians got burnt by the woke move, by COVID, everyone being online, people getting in trouble for old jokes. Yeah, Me Too, certainly. And so some of them said, "Oh, here's a new haven for me. Here's a place where it's But now that the thing that was like the rebellious group is the fucking president, you're not punk anymore. You're not cool anymore. That's the fucking principle. And you're like going out there, like talking about how cool the principle is and saying that he believes in free speech when he doesn't. That's where I go. You're no longer a comedian. You have to admit what you are is you work for the state in this particular instance. And that's not a comedian. The jester should occasionally, be scared, or politician should not want to be with a comedian. Michelle Wolf was the last person who, like in a really public setting, it felt like she had the chutzpah to go, I'm going to talk shit, but it's hard.
Yeah, and she got everyone turned on her.
Everyone turned on her.
The media, politicians.
But that's how it should be. Yes. The problem is comedians got too rich, too powerful, too famous, and they didn't contend with it. And now we're watching huge comedians like toe the line for the president to go up there and go, hey, he lets you say whatever you want and he gets mad pussy. And you're like, fuck you. That's so disappointing. You're supposed to be out here critiquing those in power.
You tweeted it. It's a great line. I wrote it down. I love how comedians have gone from "it's a big club and you ain't in it," the George Carlin line, to "I've had the club members on my podcast and they're actually really nice, so everyone should just do what they say." Fucking pathetic. Yeah, you tweeted. I assume you talked about.
Was that before Bill Maher? Did I tweet? I feel like
that was before Bill Maher.
That was before Bill Maher. Yeah.
But Rogan, obviously, you had Rogan, who is the face of it, as you say. Someone did a little. We should pull it up at some point. But somebody did a kind of grid of like Joe Rogan with Chamath, Joe Rogan with Thiel, Joe Rogan with Musk, like all these billionaires, and it's like, huh? Like, as you say, that's the principle. These are the richest men on the planet.
And then
you're supposed to be making fun of them.
They'll look at Rogan with Bernie and they'll go, look, he kind of agrees with Bernie on this.
10 years ago.
And it's like, yeah, I don't think he has a strict political ideology because he never became a politician. He's just a dude, but he's not analyzing himself or asking himself the question of like, how are these people using me?
Yes.
And then there's Joe Rogan. Man, this ain't nothing new. He's got this really, really strong habit of just agreeing with anyone who's in the room with him. He'll nod along with Bernie Sanders one day and then turn around and co-sign a right-winger for the next. It's like whoever he's talking to, he's riding with them. But shout out John Marco. He makes a really, really strong point. It's hard to criticize someone when you're chopping it up with them at their house, going to dinner with them, and hanging out off camera. That's real rap right there. Even the folks who think they're out here doing harm, when you get close, that pressure to play nice hits different.
And I think a lot of comedians, we're about to see with Bill Maher, they really do believe in their soul. If I talk to this guy, who knows, maybe I sway him a little. And I go, that's where you've become blind to what people in power do. They do what they want. You're being used. You're being used. And maybe you agree with them on some things. Like, at the end of the day, Bill Maher and Trump have a lot more in common than not. And that's part of the whole thing.
So Bill Maher, just for context for people who aren't aware, who claims to be liberal, I laugh out loud as he says that, he had dinner with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago recently. Let's have a clip. Let's play a clip of Bill talking about how that dinner went.
I told him I thought parts of his plan for Gaza were wacky, but that I had supported him in the idea that Gaza could be Dubai instead of hell. I told him he was wrong when he tweeted the night before that I was critical of all things Trump. Not true. Check the tapes. Moving Israel's embassy to Jerusalem, loved it. The border did need to be controlled. I'm glad the cops are getting their morale back.
Bill Maher, you talk about it wasn't so long ago. He has been the face of the free speech brigade for years.
And by the way, only because it hurt his bottom line.
Hurt his bottom line. And because he doesn't like pro-Palestine people. Israel has always been a strong issue for him. He's one of these guys who likes to be liberal except on Israel.
I'm sure everybody hooks up with his Gen Z, and so he's tired of hearing about their pronouns and whatnot.
But he's been obsessed with the woke left and free speech.
Of course.
And here he is having dinner with the most anti-free speech politician in modern American history.
And pitching it like he is having a conversation, creating dialogue. And I talked about with my podcast co-host, Russell Daniels, his point was like, oh, you want to have a conversation? Then go talk to a Trump supporter in the world. This is just two millionaires having dinner together. You're just having a nice dinner.
Two racist, bigoted billionaires. Bill Maher has his own history of Islamophobia,
of course,
anti-black remarks, etc., etc.
But the idea that he pitched, like his version of saving face, was like we had a dialogue, and it's like, no, you didn't at all. You just had a nice, probably really good dinner and laughed and
when you left, Donald Trump probably chuckled with his advisors. Another one down.
Of course, and. I just think people need to look at Bill Maher, talk about bullshit, and just go, okay, this is not a comedian anymore. This is kind of a pseudo-journalist who hides behind the face of comedy, where there's a lot of that these days, both sides, comedians kind of pretend to be journalists and vice versa, and go, based on his own, if you think Trump tried to overturn the election and thwart democracy, if you think that and you purported that, why the fuck would you have dinner with him? And that not be the only thing. You should have walked in and be like, hey, what the fuck, from the get-go.
Yeah.
Not, hey, I kind of like that one thing you did. Didn't love it when you almost tried to destroy the basic tenet of America.
Did he even bring up
He didn't even mention it.
Or Badr Khan Suri or Ramesa Alsta, all these people. He's a free speech champion. Aren't these the biggest free speech cases of our time?
Of course, this was the religious guy. This is the guy who went on and on about religion and suddenly is on his own show saying, well, Israel was promised to the Jews in the Bible. Ever heard of it? And you go, that's, again,
so true. Although you said that he was a comedian until he went to see Trump. I would argue he wasn't a comedian for a long time. He's not been funny for many years.
Sure. I think Norm Macdonald says something like, he's the least funniest person I've ever heard claim to be a comedian. Again, it's just like he uses comedy to disguise that it's just kind of a light political opinion show. And
old school bigotry. And, a lot of people listen to him. That's what's shocking. I don't know how anyone likes that kind of smarminess. A lot of his audience nowadays are kind of right-wing, as you say. Even Bill Maher, he plays that role of even liberal Bill Maher. You'll see that Fox News Daily Mail headline everywhere. And he validates for a lot of quote-unquote centrists and conservatives. But my point is, what is liberal about him these days?
Of course. But it's just that he has the memory of a goldfish. And he certainly doesn't. I'm sure he's smarter and manipulative in a way, but people have this memory of a goldfish where it's like, who cares if Trump is nice? Who cares if Trump gives you a free hotel room for a week? Who gives a shit?
One of the best points Mehdi Hasan makes here is that Donald Trump might be the most anti-free speech politician we see in a very, very long time. And honestly, I don't think he's wrong. I can't think of anyone in my lifetime who has been more thin-skinned about criticism than Trump. Trump is out here talking about taking NBC off the air just because they're making fun of him on SNL. Same thing with other networks. He's actually talking about pulling licenses if they don't say nice things about him. But yet, you got Bill Maher, Mr. I love free speech. I'm anti-woke. I think like Trump's some kind of hero, but bro, how you gonna preach about comedy and free speech while you're also backing up the guy who wants to shut down your jokes, your channel, and all of your content? It's kind of crazy to me. So yeah, free speech warriors out here backing the most anti-free speech guy in the game, and the irony writes itself. I appreciate y'all for watching. If you're here for the real, not performative noise, go ahead and like the video. Drop your take in the comments and hit subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one.